All right, 24 minutes before 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Nice looking Friday. We're looking forward to the weekend. Got a parade going through town tomorrow. I'm looking forward to being a spectator of the parade. 2 weeks ago, yesterday, Robin and I were up in New York at the Thanksgiving parade that Macy's puts on up there, and one of the things we noticed was the security was intense, and part of that security were dogs. We saw so many dogs that were obviously trained to be able to sniff, I guess, or detect, I guess, whatever bad things people might be up to. And it's just amazing to me how dogs are able to help us out in this world. It's just amazing when you think about, I mean, the job that they do, the service that they provide us is probably mostly unspoken, because as we walk past all those dogs, right, Robin, we thought, well, is that a bomb-sniffing dog? Is that like, can it detect a human emotion? You hear about that all the time, right? Karen Nicksich is on the phone. I apologize if I'm saying your name wrong, Karen. Karen is an inspirational writer. She encourages young readers to love reading. That's a good thing. She volunteers for Love on a Leash. Wait till you hear about this program. A therapy dog named Maddie is part of this conversation as well. And Karen is a teacher for 35 years. Wow. And she's talking to us about service animal companionship for veterans dealing with the effects of PTSD. We used to think of service dogs only as for the blind. And we have come to learn that dogs can be so amazing in helping us out in so many different things. Karen, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Larry. How are you?
I'm okay. Please correct me on your last name. How do I pronounce your last name?
Just the way you said it, Nicksich.
All right. Excellent. Boy, that's rare.
That's excellent.
Usually if there's more than one way to take a shot at a name, I get it wrong. Where are you? Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Washington State, so it's about 7:30 our time.
Oh, my gosh. Well, thank you for getting up early to do this.
Well, I'm used to getting up early as a teacher, so it's no problem.
So we broadcast, I should say, from the mall, from the local mall, and so we see a lot of people entering the mall with dogs, and we don't know if they're service dogs or not, and it doesn't matter to me. I'm a dog lover, so is Robin, but we had a gentleman in here one day, and he had a dog that was a balancing dog. In other words, if the man was starting to lose his balance, the dog would literally pull the rope that was attached to the dog left or right. Remember that?
Yeah, that was pretty neat.
He was the guy was had one artificial leg, and that was part of the problem there. Mm-hmm. So isn't that amazing?
Well, I was training a service dog for a little boy who has seizures, and the dog can detect the seizures an hour before he has it.
An hour?
So that's part of the dog's job, is when the boy has a seizure, he will either alert the mother or he will stand in front of the child in case the child falls.
Wow. What is it that are they using the sense of smell, or is it something that's a mystery to us?
Some dogs are just more adept to doing that. The service program that does that is called Heritage Service Dogs, and they are specially trained standard poodles, which is what Maddie is, and they're trained to help children with autism, and they're very, very expensive. I'm not going to lie. It costs $3,000 to get the dogs.
Wow.
But they're bred to be service dogs, and then the training is anywhere from $5,000 to $8,000 to train these dogs to do what they're supposed to do. So the dog I helped train, the parents could afford the dog, but they couldn't afford the training. So I went and worked with the family to acclimate the little boy with autism what a dog was, because he had sensory issues.
Oh, wow.
And it took me a good month with Maddie before he would even come into the room and touch her.
Wow. Oh, my.
And the important thing about he's 5 years old, and the service dog that he was getting was about 6 months old, and we wanted them to imprint on each other as soon as possible. And you usually get a puppy to do that, and then as they get older, they can pick up on sensations, or they can pick up on sensory issues, emotional issues, and then they are trained specifically, like I said, to alert the parents or to stand by the child if they have a meltdown or a seizure.
And you have a book called The Tales of Maddie. Is that a children's book?
I did. We rescued, or the woman that we got it from said rehomed, but we actually rescued her from a farm. When we rescued her, we thought that she was a brown poodle because we had always rescued golden retrievers in the past, and we took her to Petco to be cleaned up. And, the groomer told us, well, it's going to take about 5 hours.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, why? And the groomer said, well, your golden retrievers, we can do in an hour, but this is going to take a little bit longer. And I didn't realize how matted she was, and she had sticks in her. And when I came back 5 hours later, I walked in, and all the employees were standing by the window at Petco. And I saw this beautiful, beautiful white dog come out. I said, wow, that's so pretty.
Oh, my
Whose dog is that? And then they told me it was mine. So.
Oh, wow. That's beautiful. I love that story.
What a wonderful story.
There was a video we were watching that made us both cry. Don't tell anybody what I did. And it was it was a beautiful video. I don't know if you've seen it. It's like circulating on the internet right now. It's a man who, I'm not going to tell the whole story because if you watch it, I don't want to spoil it for you. But it's basically a man who finds a dog and cleans it up and has a loving relationship with this dog. It's just a beautiful.
I cried.
Did you see it?
I cried. I was on Facebook and thought, oh no, I know how this is going to end. And as soon as he started washing the dog, the tears start rolling. So
Yeah.
Oh my
very
God.
Powerful video.
And it's got a Christmas song behind it too, so that kind of helped us feel. I showed it to Robin at Wendy's. We were having lunch. And she cried at Wendy's. I felt so bad. I made Robin cry at Wendy's.
That's okay. I'd rather be genuine than fake.
So tell me about...
When I finished my first book, The Time of My Life, I finished it the day A Dog's Purpose came out.
Oh, my gosh.
Husband, we have to go see that. And my husband kept saying, no, I don't think this is a good time because we had just lost our retriever. I said, no, I have to go see it. And sure enough, cried through the whole thing. But I think they were tears of joy. It was such a beautiful, beautiful movie.
Really? See, I'm afraid to see that movie for that reason. We had the author on. We had the author of that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I want to see that.
And then
movie.
I said to Robin, there's a movie. And I said, oh my gosh, I don't know if I want to see it. I think I'm going to have a hard time with this one. For those who don't know the story, it's a dog who lives several lives and keeps coming back. So every time he dies, you're going to cry.
I know.
Yeah, well, I would love to see it.
Really? Oh my gosh. So when you are working with a dog, are you able to train every dog? Maybe that's the question I wanted to ask, because I've had dogs who seem to be really smart, but there's some things they just won't grasp, like sit.
Well, I've trained both service dogs and rescue dogs. And the service dog that we trained was for the blind. And our job was to socialize the dog for a year. And so he came into my classroom and he made all the benchmarks of getting on and off public transportation, stores, restaurants, being around children, people. When he went off after the year that we socialized him and he went to the school for the blind to be officially trained, he did not make the cut because I don't know what it was, but out of all the dogs, he was a great dog. He was smart. He knew what to do, but he didn't pass. And so he was given to a person, a loving family, because we already had 2 golden retrievers at the time when we were training him. But Maddie, on the other hand, we had never rescued a standard poodle, and I knew how smart she was. And a lot of people don't realize all the training that goes into these dogs. They have to get their CGC. It's a requirement to live in this state that dogs get their CGC, which is a good canine citizenship. And there are a variety of different skills that they have to pass off, like sit, stay, lay, stay, They have to be able to walk by things on the floor, yummy things like candy, and not pick it up, and you just say, leave it. And they have to be able to walk down the street where there's loud noise and commotion and not get scared. So it worked really well for me because they were building a new elementary school down the street from where we lived. And so I deliberately, when I was practicing with Maddie, would walk her when all these huge trucks were coming down. And, our command is check it out. And then it just redirects the brain so they can keep walking. And then they have to be walked on a loose lead with like one finger in there, and they stay on the left-hand side of us. And then after 10 weeks, you get evaluated by an evaluator for the CGC to see if you pass all the benchmarks. And the hardest one for me was to put Maddie on a sit, stay, lay, stay, and then I had to leave the room for 3 minutes. And I thought, oh my God, they send you into the bathroom when they do that. And I had all these visions of Maddie wandering around the arena, and, after 3 minutes, I came back out, and she was just laying next to the evaluator, had never moved.
Oh, wow.
And when we do Love on a Leash, they're trained, they can't pee in the facility. They're not allowed to bark in the facility. And it's really mentally stimulating to a dog that they know that they're working when you put that vest on them. And when we go to hospitals, we can visit up to like 150 patients a day, and they have to be aware of everything, their surroundings, the gurneys, the doctors, pills on the floor that might have fallen. And then they also have to be aware of like code blue, code brown, code black. And if there's a code blue, they're trained, since they walk on the left side of us, that we just push them right up against the wall to let all the doctors and nurses get by.
Oh.
Wow.
Wow.
That's amazing. What happens between the dog and somebody who needs therapy? Is it just because we as humans just naturally love dogs, or is there more to it when the dog is trained?
I think all dogs come into people's life for a reason, and it's based on your energy. So if you have high energy, like I used to as a teacher, we had a dog that we rescued that turned into be an agility dog, and he was going into search and rescue because he was a working dog. And Malamute, Chow, Dogs de Bordeaux are all working dogs, and if you don't keep them stimulated, if you don't keep them working on, they can do massive destruction to your house, to your yard. And so when we rescued this dog, we realized immediately he had to have a job, and I had to walk him 3 to 4 times a day, and I had to take him to the dog park, and thankfully I wasn't teaching at that time. And so I thought a good job for this dog would be to take agility classes, because he could have cared less about the good canine at the dog facility.
Now,
the first day of the good,
since you train the dogs and then you have to let them go, how do you stay detached during the training? Isn't this a huge emotional realization for you once the dog is not going to be with you, since you've had him for at least a year?
It's harder on my children, I have to say that. They're both adults now. But I deliberately, my son wanted to train a seeing eye dog when he was in 4th grade. And we told him up front that this was going to be a huge commitment and we'd have to say goodbye after a year. And I knew the bigger, I guess it was the bigger lesson, that it was going to go and help somebody. So it was easier for me to say goodbye, but there were lots of tears. I'm not going to lie. That day when the facility came and picked the dog up to go to have the official training for the blind. But for therapy dogs, I'm both the handler and the owner. And so all the dogs that I've ever rescued have either been agility dogs or they've been emotional therapy dogs, assisted therapy dogs, or social therapy dogs.
But it must have been sad for the dog, too, because you're the only family and your son was the only family that dog knew.
I think the dog was a little confused, but part of the socializing of that dog was to get him used to people and being around crowds. And it is hard. It's really, really hard, but when you decide to do this, you know that up front, and you know it's going to help somebody. And with Maddie, I know her big purpose, which I never realized when we rescued her, is to help people in hospice that are preparing to cross over.
Oh.
And the first time I took her to an assisted living center, we were walking around with all the Love on a Leash dogs, and she just stopped at one room, and I couldn't get her to move. And so the activity director said, you know, maybe that's not a good room for you to visit today. And I asked why, and they said, well, that person's getting ready to cross over, and Maddie was not about to leave. And I said, well, Maddie's not going to leave until she goes in. Can we just go in and pay a short visit? And we discovered that is what her purpose on this earth is to help families come to terms with their loved one that's going to cross over, to help the loved one that is crossing over not be afraid. And she'll just come in there and she'll jump on their bed, and so she can calm the person down that's anxious. And then I sit in the corner because I have 2 leashes with me, and I just watch how she interacts with the family, and she just kind of brings a sense of calm to the room. And then when I see that everybody is calm and the person that's ready to cross over is okay, then we just leave.
Oh, my.
And
Wow. I have a few questions that are almost like supernatural or religious in nature regarding that. Do you think they see something? Do you think the dog sees things that we don't see?
oh, obviously they do, because I'm an angel reader, and I can hear angels talking to me. And I'm aware of when my mom and my dad are in our house.
So you've
both
got
crossed over.
So you're gifted also.
I am too. And so I can actually sit in the chair with Maddie, and I watch angels coming into the room, and I see the person that's going to help the person cross over come into the room. And lots of times that's why the person who's preparing to cross over is anxious, because they can see people coming into the room to help them cross over.
Oh, wow.
And I know when my job is done, because you know, it's usually a mother of somebody that has already crossed over that comes in to help take their loved one home. And then that's my responsibility, I feel like, to leave at that point, because everybody is calm and everybody has said their goodbyes, and it's so important for people to do when a loved one is preparing to cross over, is to tell that person they will be okay. And I must say that was the hardest thing for me to do when my mom crossed over, was to say, I will be okay, our family will be okay, because she was my best friend.
Wow.
But I know she needed to hear that, and I saw my grandmother who had crossed over when I was in college, come into the room, so I knew my mom was really close to crossing over. And I just, thank God that my grandmother was the one that helped her. And I also thank God that I was able to get to her, because I had to fly from Salt Lake to Florida, where you are, in the middle of a hurricane.
Oh, gosh.
To get to the hospital on the first day of school. And I thank God that my older sister called my husband, she called my husband to say that my mom was in the hospital, and my husband was making plane tickets for me when I came home from school. So it was divine timing. The plane landed in time for me to be able to see my mother and say goodbye. And I always know when she's with me. She's probably with me right now as we're talking to you.
Gosh.
Wow. Now I understand the name of your website. Your website is petangelreader.com, and there's a hyphen between the word pet and angel reader, so pet-angelreader.com. I took a photo off of your page so that there are listeners watching on the podcast can see you and the dog, and you look really cute in your hat. So do you think dogs cross over to, are dogs in heaven? It's kind of hard for us to know, I guess, but what do you think?
Well, the one advice I would give anybody that has a dog that crosses over, well, there's actually two things. One, when your dog is ready to cross over, they will let you know. They'll stop eating. They'll stop engaging with the family. They'll separate themselves. That's it. And if they can't do the three things that they love the most, and with Max, that was going on walks, if they stop enjoying doing that, and he stopped eating and he wouldn't, that's a sign that they're ready to cross over. But when you do cross over, if it's possible, bring your other dog with you so they understand what's happening, because they will know intuitively when the vet gives that very last shot that helps them cross over. He will know that their friend is no longer there. And if you take the collar off the dog, we took Max's collar off after he crossed over, and you put it by your nightstand, the energy of the dog is still in that collar, and you will have wonderful dreams with your dog in it.
Oh,
wow. Gosh, isn't that something?
I wanted to tell you something real quick. I have a minute here to tell you this. This is a story about how I got one of my dogs. You told earlier that a dog is meant, you're meant to have, if a dog is meant to be in your life, it will be. Mm-hmm. So I had a dog that had died, and I told myself, no more dogs, no more dogs, no more dogs. and I walked into a Walgreens, and it was about this time of year. It was about Christmas time. Actually, it was like New Year's, wasn't it? It was like right after New Year's.
Yeah.
And there was a young girl outside the store with a box with puppies in it. And she said, would you like a dog? I'm giving them away. And I said, no, I can't have a dog. I can't have a dog. So I'm in Walgreens, and I'm thinking, oh, my gosh, I want a dog. And then I thought, okay, God, I'm going to ask you a favor. I'm going to flip a coin. If it's heads, I'll get a dog. If it's tails, I won't. I reached into my pocket. I had no change at all. And I thought, okay, that means God doesn't want me to have a dog. So now I go pay for my product that I'm buying. The lady, the cashier gives me my change, and a penny falls off the counter and is spinning on the floor. And that's
a signal that an angel is with you when pennies fall.
Oh, my gosh. And I'm staring at the penny. Everybody's looking at me like, okay. And it lands on heads, and I go, oh, my gosh, I'm supposed to get a dog. So I go outside the door where the little girl was, and she had only 3 puppies left. Mm-hmm. One of them was spoken for, and one of them had a crapped out eye. And so I took the only other one because I didn't want to have the doctor bill for the crapped out eye. I thought that was going to be hard for me to pay for.
Yeah.
So I took the other one, and that dog lived with me for like 15, 16 years before she finally died. So,
yes.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
That was similar to what happened to my husband when Max crossed over, my older son. Immediately, we were on Craigslist. We were on Pet Finder trying to find another golden, and my husband said, no more dogs. I cannot go through this again. Please, no more dogs.
Yeah.
Until we saw Maddie. And I said, oh, well, let's just go out and see her. And he said, Max just crossed over 2 weeks ago. I can't do it.
Yeah.
And honestly, Maddie was the one that ran up to him. And Maddie, because she's such a healing dog, she leaped into his arms. And now she runs the house. She's allowed to sleep on the bed.
Oh, really? Oh, my God.
And she greets my husband every night. And if he's had a stressful day, she is the best thing to decompress my husband.
Aww.
When he's been working all day. So it's similar to you that my husband said, no more. And I'm going, but that's my purpose in life, is to rescue dogs.
What a delightful conversation we're having with you. Karen Nicksich, the website is petangelreader.com. Put a hyphen between pet and angel reader, pet-angelreader.com. The books are for sale on your website, correct?
They're available at Barnes & Noble and Amazon, but if you go to my website, you can just click and it will take you there.
Okay, excellent. Karen, thank you for your stories. Thank you for such a great conversation, and definitely come back anytime.
Oh, thank you, and a very happy holiday to all of your listeners in Florida.
Karen. Thank you, Karen. Same to you. We'll be right back.
Okay. Bye.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
If you find an animal or a bird that needs help, call Animus Foundation at 352-843-6379. They will come and get the animal if you can't take it to them. High school students and those with court-ordered community service can earn required hours in this rewarding environment. And veterans who share a bond with animals and parents who have been through mental or physical trauma are